Steph with Tiny's Garden. I am gardening here in Zone 5B, the Chicago suburbs, and today we are doing a plant haul and talking about the 5 things I look for when I'm selecting my plants. Let me preface that the plants that I've selected are for this undeveloped area. So I just did a big garden tour, end of June garden tour for our front garden beds. Those have been established. I'm just adding some things here and there. This is a brand new garden bed. We redid, I should say, the front of our house, and this used to be grass and now it is garden, which I'm thrilled about. Let me give you a closer look so you can get a lay of the land here. So this section over here where you see all this ground cover, that was there. This sidewalk was not, and where you see it wrapping around, this was all grass. It was just that circle patch that was there. So now this empty space, I've added just a little bit and hoping that ground cover will fill in. But you can see we've got a lot of room for plants to fill in here, which I'm thrilled about. This will make more sense. This is the front entryway here, the porch that was redone, the sidewalk that was put in. And this is a full sun area here, so I can add a lot to that chunk of land right there. So let's go near my garage where I've got a bunch of plants camping out, and I'll go through what I have and then also the 5 things that I think are important when you're planning out a new garden bed or selecting plants. Here's where our selection of plants starts. You can see the sun is setting, so it's a little bright, but I've got lots of things to go through here, so let's check it out. I'm gonna lay all these plants out here in the shade in a spot that I think would be appropriate, and here are the factors that I am taking into consideration for where I put them. First, we have height. I want the garden bed to be presentable in a way that nothing's really covered. So that means I can't put something that grows 3 feet tall right in the front of the sidewalk. Down here, in this section along the front, those are going to need to be lower lying plants. Along the back, I'm fine if they're taller because that's just a walkway to get up to our porch in one way. We've got another walkway right up through here. So I'm fine with the back being taller, and then gradually I want to have some levels, the middle section here, mid-height, and then when we get toward the front, something that's more ground level is going to be more suitable. Second, color. Oh, you know your girl loves some color. Now, not everybody wants to have pops of color in their garden. Some prefer a softer palette or a more tranquil look. I personally love to see different pops of color. It gives a lot of dimension to the garden bed. So I'm taking into consideration what color each plant is, and that includes foliage, blooms, all of that. Third, sun exposure. This is important. Each plant has a preferred sun exposure. You get some that are really versatile that can do well in sun or shade, which is a dream because you can plant it anywhere. But most plants like to have certain sun exposure, either full sun, which is more than 6 hours of sun, part sun, which is 4 to 6 hours of sun, or less than 4 hours of sun in the shade. So I've got to consider where my planting spot is for which plants I'm planting. Number 4, bloom time. This is when the show is. When does this plant put on its blooms? Now, some plants are just mainly foliage plants, and sometimes you're leaning on those for color and the next thing I'm going to talk about, but a lot of plants have blooms and they bloom during a specific time of year. For instance, peonies have a gorgeous, gorgeous spring show or spring bloom time. That's when they're blooming. So you want to ensure to have blooms throughout the whole year, ideally. So that's where things like spring blooming things come in, such as peonies, summer blooming things, all the things we want, including evergreens. Evergreens keep their leaves on them throughout the year, so you've got some winter interest if you're in a northern part of the country that's colder. Bloom time is something to consider. Number 5, lastly, texture is something I consider when I'm picking my plants for the garden. Texture is what does the plant give you visually? Is it smooth? Is it feathery? Essentially, it's again giving some dimension to the bed. What type of texture or visual appeal do these plants have? Is it an evergreen that's kind of prickly and has some blue-gray tones or dark green tones? Or bee balm that's a perennial that has really spiky blooms, and so it adds a lot of dimension into the bed with that type of texture looking appearance. You wouldn't want, or at least I wouldn't want, something that is just the same over and over and over again. Of course, unless you're doing a hedge or something like that. Texture gives a little dimension to the bed, which is always visually appealing. Okay, so I've got everything laid out. Let's take a look and I'll take you through what I have and why I put it in the spot that I did. I still have more to get. I usually start with kind of groups of 3 of things. Odd numbers are typically better in the garden as far as quantity of things. There are some things I'm gonna go get more of, and I've got my garden gloves and my sandals to mark those spots. Let's take a look. This is the gist of it. Let's get into it. So as I said before, we've got this side. Now this carnival variegated hedge maple plant, it's a tree actually. It's a tree that doesn't get too high, about 6 to 8 feet high and about the same wide, I believe. That I need to plant in there, but I think this is the perfect spot. There was a red bud there and it died. So this can get part shade or sun, and actually does okay in the shade too. So if you need a versatile plant, that's your plant. But on each side of it, we've got an orange rocket barberry. And I like what the orange does against the variegated hedge maple. And it's really more of a deep burgundy, because I'm not an orange girl. More of a deep burgundy, and it looks really nice there. And those I will just contain. Their height can get 4 to 5 feet high, but I'll keep them lower than that and be sure to prune them. Here in the front, this texturized plant is a hibiscus. I believe it's a wine red hibiscus, so that'll bloom in the summer. And then this other peony I picked up this spring, that's the scarlet peony. Gorgeous, gorgeous color. Oh, I love it. 3 dahlias planted here, which are looking good. And if you notice the color, it's a dark looking color. So a little variation there in color. That's HS date and HS, I'm gonna have to put it on the spring. That's what we're looking at over here. Now this is one of the views I'm most looking forward to. Obviously it's coming up the sidewalk. Now, you see my glove and you see my sandal. I am going to get 2 more of these gorgeous denim and lace Russian sage. Look at that electric color. Such a beautiful purple blue color with like a sagey green and those texturized leaves. Oh, I love it. Now these will get about 32 inches tall, 28 to 32. So it's almost gonna form somewhat of a little hedge between these 2 spots, which I kind of like. It's just a drift or a line or curve of plants that kind of invites you in to the next section. And I really enjoy that juxtaposition between the tones we have over here and then heading this way. Now in the back, we've got penstemon. This is the Midnight Masquerade. So this will bloom spring to midsummer, I believe is the bloom time. And if you look at the leaves, we've got some darker, almost purplish leaves. And if I can get a good view of the bloom, it's got some really beautiful kind of electric purple / electric lilac. They almost glow. Full sun. Again, all of these are full sun. And if you notice there in the back, those get 36 to 40 inches tall. So they'll pair really nicely with this Russian sage, almost a similar color, but give me that height I'm looking for in the back. As we come forward, if you look at these little seedlings down here, let's get a closer look. That is a baby lupine or lupin. I've got some lupin that I planted from seed. There's one over here, and then there's one up here. So a group of 3 that should bloom next year, and then those should perennialize. And those are the Bands of Nobles mix. So I could get a variety of colors there. And they should land kind of somewhere in the middle of the Russian Sage and the Midnight Masquerade. And actually, I think they're going to bloom a lot earlier than both of these as well. So I'll have a show of different seasons right here. Let's go backwards. So kind of to the back left side of the lupines, and by the Midnight Masquerade back here, we've got more seedlings, my little baby seedlings of, guess what it is? Foxglove. These are a biennial, which means they have green growth the first year, which is why they look like this. And wait for this one. Hello, love that guy. And then they will bloom the second year. So next year I should have beautiful, tall foxglove in the back. Foxglove can get very, very tall. So imagine that foxglove tucked in back there with the lupine, because those should be blooming kind of at the same time. It'll fill in that gap. And then on the other seasons, we've got everything else filling in the color gap from those. So let's come forward to these roses. I put a drift of 3 back here. If I wanted to come forward with more, it'd be a little tight. These have 3-foot spacing. They'll get 3 feet tall and wide. So I think 3 is going to be perfect. It's the At Last rose. And I've heard so many good things about this rose. I mean, the coloring. Let's look at this new bloom over here. Okay. Can you? Because I can't even. Gorgeous. Gorgeous peachy pink. Almost salmon. Just absolutely stunning when they put on the bloom. Full sun as well, and really easy to maintain. They don't need to be deadheaded, which is nice. I am not necessarily a rose girl as far as having experience with them, but I've heard so many good things about them. I saw them and I snatched them up because this is one of the few full sun spots I have. They're also very fragrant. So picture coming up this walkway toward the front door and you just get a whiff of those roses. How magical! Now let's come down to what we have in front. If you'll notice, this green foliage on these, which are also a penstemon, just a different variety. This is the Cherry Sparks, and I planted these in my front garden bed and they didn't do very well. These can take part shade too, but I think it was too shady in that spot up front. But I just absolutely love the color of these blooms. Let's get a close-up. Really gorgeous, and I actually think it plays pretty nicely off of that rose in the background, off of the Atlas. Some people probably wouldn't put them together, but I like the combination, especially since the green foliage is a little different than the rose's dark green foliage. So there's a juxtaposition there as well. Height-wise, these are getting 18 to 20 inches. So again, it's my shorter layer here in the bed that's gradually getting taller in height with these plants. Now this curved section in front of these is where I usually have my spring tulips. My spring tulip show on each side of the sidewalk. It worked well this year. I'm going to do it again next year with different varieties. I have them on each side. But I'm thinking I could come in the front with some stone crop sedum or something that's very small, almost like a ground cover, to help camouflage the dying tulip foliage if I want to keep those tulips there. So I'm a little undecided, so I'm going to leave this space for now, but I do have room if I want to stick something in. I could, especially as I'm looking at this. Where's my spotter? Come on, Sandal. Like right, nope, hold on. Like right in there, I could maybe do something like a globe evergreen, something with a little different type of green color, and that spiky winter interest would be pretty there. So if you're feeling my drift, this is a little undecided, but that's okay. I've got time. Speaking of evergreens, hey, we've got another placeholder back here. Off to the back, behind the rows, and in front of these, which I'll get to in a second, as I'm laying this out, I'm thinking tall evergreen here. Wouldn't that be pretty to add some height interest and draw the eye up a little bit? I'm not worried about it covering the back because those will still get exposure from people coming up the sidewalk, but something narrow and columnar? How do you say that word? Columnar, something narrow, I think would be really pretty, and then also give me some winter interest because it would have leaves on it and color on it in the winter. So that's what that sandal is the spot holder for. And again, that's right off of these foxglove. You're gonna see my shadow for a second, but now that I'm looking at it and talking about it, see the sandal I placed there? What if I did a globe evergreen there? And where I had my other sandal right here, and then the third one, the tall one there, then I'd have 3 evergreens giving me some seasonal interest in the winter. And it's also in a pattern that would be consistent. Oh, I'm liking this idea. Obviously, I'm thinking out loud here, but this is why I think it's important to lay out your plants in their cans. Look at the spacing on the tag. It will tell you height. It will tell you spacing, though I fudge the spacing, so that's why I'm not including spacing in one of my 5 things. I tend to go a little closer so things fill in really nicely. But lay your cans out, put everything out, and then you can kind of understand what gaps you have, and things will come to you just like they just came to me there. Like, I'm really liking that evergreen idea. So put your plants out, let them sit for a second, visualize. Okay, now that we got over that beautiful moment of inspiration, let's head to the back. Okay, I'm coming at this from the sidewalk now, and this is the spot that is full shade back here. So I need something that can handle full shade, but I also don't want an empty corner right next to our ramp, my son's sidewalk chalk, to our front door. So what did I spot at the garden center the other day, except something I'd never seen before in one of my favorite, if not favorite, shade plants? The eucharis. I have to tell you, these struck me as soon as I saw them. The color of this foliage is one I've never seen. It's kind of a yellowy, but has a little peachish tinge to it and almost a mauve, which I think is really unique. And these beautiful, pretty tall yellow flowers on top, which I really like against the black siding back there. I believe this is Northern Exposure Amber. I don't really have a good tag that says anything. So I'm gonna have to really research and try and figure out which one this is, but it is stunning and it's going to hold down the real estate back here in this full shade spot. Also, any green color, especially I'm thinking kind of Colorado blue sprucey type of color, against that foliage is going to look really, really nice with that pop of yellow mauve behind it. Okay, now walk around and see different views of this garden or your garden to see if you like the lay of the land from several different angles. Oh, I love it. This is coming off the porch. The pop of the cherry sparks, bright pink slash, it's not red, it's more of a electric pink, with the softness of the rose and then the texture of the Russian sage and those electric blooms. Ugh, I'm here for that. With the barberry in the background, adding that touch of orangish burgundy and then the big white variegated tree. I'm loving the way that looks from the porch. Furthermore, let me set the scene for you. Remember those dahlias I showed you? They're gonna come up right in here, and that's like a peachy color, I believe. And then way in that corner in front of the car by the white, off-white post, that is a climbing hydrangea that's going to be planted there. So imagine once that's actually growing up the trellis, and then we have some white blooms back there, dahlia blooms in front of the tree, then the Russian sage with that texture and that bluish purple and the pink. Oh my gosh, what a show. Yes, Yes. Can you tell this is the first time I've laid out this area with some plants? I've just been buying what I think will work, kind of imagining in my head, but when you lay it out, man, is it exciting. Then from this angle over here, I like that I can see the Russian sage blooms through here. My dahlias will get bigger, but I think these orange rockets anchoring this corner and that corner correlates in well with the yellowish foliage all the way back there. And when those Midnight Masquerade penstemons are in bloom, those little bright purpley blooms are gonna contrast really nicely with these orange rocket barberries. They're opposite parts of the color wheel, and opposite color wheel colors always go really well together. And lastly, let's go from this corner view from my cut flower beds. Loving where the tree is placed, again, really anchoring that corner with that contrasted white green color against the house. I'm going to go and get 2 more Russian sages, as I said before, to finish that loop. I like what that brings. This hibiscus is going to be a dark bloom here at the end of summer and early into fall, so that also gives me a nice big punch of color, but not too much color. Grounds the space in front of this bed, and then welcomes us in to some pops of color everywhere, but nothing is overwhelming. It all works together. I've got different interest of bloom, spring, summer, fall, and winter if I get those evergreens, which I think I'm gonna have to now. I've got a 4-season of interest show here. And these are all perennials. Every single one of these will come back year after year. That's what I wanted for this front garden space, so it's less annual work for me. Of course, the dahlias are not. The dahlias are tubers that I'll have to dig up in the winter because we're in zone 5B, store them, and then I can plant them back out or move them somewhere else. But everything else, with the exception of those, are perennials, my workhorses. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If you've got a new garden bed or a garden bed that needs to be filled up with some more plants, those are the main 5 things I look for and try to balance out when I'm designing a new garden space. And I am pretty tickled pink at how this one's coming along. Happy dance? I think so. Come on, Axel. We did it. It's working. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Come alive. Come alive. Come alive. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please be sure to subscribe to keep up here with all things garden. And also comment below and let me know what plants you're putting into the ground right now, into any new garden beds that you have, any perennials that you think are a workhorse. Tell your sister, I'd love to hear about it, and we will see you in the next one. Happy planting, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.